Welcome to the December edition of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. I'm Charlie Arnot, CEO of the Center for Food Integrity. We help today's food system build trust and remain trustworthy. And thanks so much for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, no matter where you are. And good morning to our faithful listeners in Quebec and around the world. One attendee of a recent conference where I was speaking was kind enough to stop by and say hello and tell me how much he liked hearing you, Dr. Hughes. So we're excited about that. And again, joining us today, as always, for the fastest 15 minutes in food from the United Kingdom, David Hughes, Professor Emeritus at Imperial College of London and respected expert on food and beverage trends around the globe, where he is found frequently in different parts of the world. David, welcome. How are things going in your part of the world today?
Well, Charlie, it's wet. In fact, it's saturated outside. I mean, the low point in November, mid-November, was the high water point in Monmouth, which is the town on the Welsh borders where I live. And we had just devastating floods, for goodness sake. The town is between two rivers, in the V of two rivers, which is good for defense and but not good for floods, as you can imagine. I mean, the town itself was established in 1067, so close to a
Oh,
thousand
my.
years ago, and it survived battles, floods, probably plagues of locusts, as you can imagine. And it's a testament to its resilience, but it's had to be resilient. It's just been shocking, frankly. Fingers crossed we don't get more flooding.
Let's hope the water goes down and invaders don't take advantage of the flood. So we'll hope for the best. Okay, this morning we're covering a wide range of issues affecting food and agriculture, including new food taxes, gene editing, and the evolving retail scene, which never stops. David, you mentioned last month that the British government would be introducing its new budget. What does that impact? What's the impact of that on the food system?
Right. And well, our national budget, it's where our government outlines its spending plans and also tells us where it's going to get the money from. And that's what we're normally apprehensive about, for goodness sake. The we wanted a good budget, but it actually was disappointing from a beleaguered food industry point of view. The supermarkets in particular were making the point that business tax over this last 9 months or so is really driving food inflation, and they were looking for a
Hmm.
reduction in property taxes. They pay a huge amount in property taxes on, their supermarket sites, etc. But there were no changes in those taxes, so they didn't get what they wanted. What they got was what they didn't want, which was the minimum wage has been increased. In the UK, for 21-year-olds plus, the minimum wage is about $17 per hour. I just checked, Charlie. I mean, actually, the federal rate in the
Right.
US is a measly $7.50. I don't think anybody handles that, but I note in California you're up to $20.
Yep.
But I know increasing the minimum wage, it does affect particularly food service. I was talking with my son, who is the one with restaurants and cafes, and that will put just extra costs, which he knows he can't pull back in terms of additional income. So it's tough for him. So not good news, but there was some good news in the budget, which is that the government are trying to reduce the import and export regulations that we built post Brexit. So we were all upset with each other post Brexit, and we built this bureaucracy of requirements for food to be checked into the UK and for our food to be checked out. And most of our food imports actually come from EU countries, and
Sure.
almost all our food exports go to EU countries. So it was completely stupid just to make it more difficult. And the government have said, yes, one way or another, they're going to remove some of that red tape, and not before time, I might tell you. But more food tax news came I'm afraid, in the budget, which related actually to. I think I've mentioned in the past that back in 2018, the government introduced a sugar tax on fizzy drinks, as we would call them,
Hmm.
which essentially was adding 10 cents per can of pop for pop with sugar in it. And it was very successful on being launched because a lot of the companies changed their formulation to lower sugar levels so they wouldn't have to pay the tax. And milk-based drinks weren't included in that tax. But this year, milk-based drinks have been added in. So milkshakes, coffee drinks, lattes, etc. And needless to say, they've always got something to say, the dairy industry. They were very upset, saying, look, milk, it's the healthiest drink, milk, nearer my God to thee, etc. But actually, it's not quite as bad as it seems because, first of all, milk drinks will be taxed, but that won't come in until 2028. So they've still got 3 years, essentially 2.5 years to reformulate. And also, the government has given the dairy industry a so-called lactose allowance,
Hmm.
saying, yes, that is natural sugar. We won't count that when we're counting the amount of sugar in your drink. So who will it affect? Well, coffee drinks, as I mentioned. I was just looking at Starbucks's cafe latte, which seems to be heavy duty sugar. That'll take a hammering, as will some of the Oatly plant-based milk products. And
And one of the
remember,
things that I think people fail to appreciate, David, is by volume, Starbucks sells more milk than they do coffee because of all of the milk that's added to lattes and other drinks that they have in the store. So by volume, it's their largest selling liquid, which is
yeah,
fascinating when you think about the potential of tax.
yeah, sure. And if you think back in history, it was fluid milk. We either drank it or we put it on cereals, and we're
Hmm.
doing less of both. Actually, we're putting it's just a different form. But Charlie, remember that our government is bound and determined to reduce consumption of high fat, sugar, and salt products overall. And if you remember, since October, that's only 2 months ago, that HFS products can't be advertised on TV before 9 p.m. And what's more, they can't be advertised online at all. And
Hmm.
so I thought, are they? Well, actually, 60% of all advertising for food and drink online in the UK is for HFS products. So
Oh,
it
wow.
will have some impact, I can assure you. And here's something that's quirky relating to HFSS, and I can link it to Christmas. So it's affecting supermarkets' Christmas advertising. What? Well, actually, in the UK, just like you do with Super Bowl ads, they're watched by millions in the UK, the Christmas ads from the
Sure.
supermarkets. And this year, the supermarket ads have to be HFS compliant. So, no pictures, no snaps of drooling customers, consumers downing sugary treats. And what I love to see is that the ads, the media score the ads on how they hold viewers' attention. And we just
Sure.
had our second round of scoring, which I loved. And who was in first place? It was one of our premium price retailers, actually Waitrose. And I mean, it seems odd, but their winner was a romantic story. Yeah, it's always lovely about a couple falling in love at the cheese counter. Oh, really? But second, the preferred ad for me, it was Aldi, a hard discounter. What a hilarious comedy sketch. What was that about? It was Kevin in a mankini, stranded at the North Pole during his stag do, while Katie, his spouse to be, enjoys a spa break on a tropical beach. And there's lots of sort of steamy double entendre between them. Well, if you think this is maybe just a little bit too risque, worry not. And why not? Because Kevin and Katie are actually carrot cartoon figures. But no, it's great fun. Good stuff.
Sounds like it'd be worth watching, that's for sure, as are the Super Bowl commercials every single year. Regardless of what the game is like, the commercials are always a big hit. Okay, we're going to move into another topic that is of interest to us at CFI. We've done a lot of work around this, and also good news from our perspective. The British government has taken a new position on gene editing. So, David, share a little bit more about what's going on in the UK.
Right, at last, the our government has passed the, and I'll have to read it here, Genetic Technology Precision Breeders Act. And so it's about precision breeding, and essentially that's gene editing has been given the thumbs up. And that puts us actually in the same league as you guys, the Canadians, who else? Australia, Japan, Brazil, and Argentina. I think that's all the countries that
Hmm.
say okay for gene editing. In the EU, you can't gene edit food products and get them on the market. They're just banned. They're seen to be identical to GMOs, which of course they're not. So, but what's interesting is what does the UK consumer think about all this? And I'll be interested to know what it's like in the US. But in the UK, there's very low awareness or knowledge of gene editing, and it's much confused with GMO. And consumers thinking, oh, if they're to be allowed, we want mandatory labeling of gene edited foods. But the government doesn't want to label. They're saying the
Hmm.
food's identical, for goodness sake. It'll be a pain to label. We don't need more food label. It'll just add more confusion. Uh, but if you tell consumers a little about gene editing, it's interesting to get what's their response then. Of course, they're concerned about health risks, they're concerned about animal welfare. They tend to put thumbs up for plants, saying that's okay, but they're wary if we do that with animals. But when they're given even more info, they actually become more supportive, particularly younger consumers, and they see gene editing as more natural, safer than GMO stuff. And actually, they get the point that they can solve problems with gene editing rather than creating problems, making plants disease resistant rather than spraying them with chemical sprays. And also, they're saying, hey, as climate changes, it may help us be more food secure.
Yeah, we saw very much the same in the US. We just completed a recent research project and we tested two animal applications, two plant applications. And what we learned was if the benefits are perceived to be sufficient, however the respondent defines sufficient, the technology is simply a means to that end. So they're not as concerned about the technology. They're interested in what the technology can do for them or do for society. What's interesting, David, in comparison to what you found in the UK, is in the US, the top performing application was actually an animal agriculture application related
Wow.
to a virus in pigs. And it scored extremely well because of the improvement in animal welfare and about a 200+% reduction in antibiotic use. So when you talk about those benefits, consumers are much more likely to be supportive. And we're going to drop a link in the chat before the end of the program. So if you're interested in learning more about the research, you can go to that link and pick up a bit more. Okay, we're going to move to our final product. Looking back at the rapidly changing online food retail scene, this is fascinating to me, David. Tell us what's going on with Ocado and Kroger.
Right. So Ocado, Ocado, it's a British technology company that's been a big deal in the UK. They've sort of developed this smart platform, which is they've been leading edge with regard to automated warehouse storage and picking online for customers. And I mean, it's fascinating to see these great buildings where there are no employees inside. They're just machines dotting around all over the place picking orders for individuals. Kroger was a premier customer for Ocado, and they've just announced the closing of three Ocado-powered, as they refer to them, customer fulfillment centers. And so
Interesting.
this is really high-tech stuff. So why is Kroger withdrawn? Well, their view is, look, we're under margin pressure. We want to move towards more flexible, lower capex fulfillment models for online offerings, and they're moving towards picking in store. Well,
Yep.
what does that mean for Ocado? I like to see British companies do well. Well, actually, Kroger isn't the only one. Sobeys in Canada have dropped them last year. But an Ocado stock price, if I went back 4 years ago, it was $3,000 per share, as we call it, and it's now at $300 per share.
Wow.
Is that bye-bye to Ocado? Well, they're still used and a lot in Poland, Spain, South Korea. Marks and Spencers are a major user in the UK, and it seems to work well in small geographies. So smaller countries that are densely populated. And that sits well for Europe in many respects. But if I remember back in 2020 when Ocado sort of hit the market, it was right bang there on the leading edge of technology. And then, if you're on the leading edge, if you don't watch it, and through time, as matters change, it can be the bleeding edge.
Yep.
We just don't know what's going to happen in the future, particularly given, and as you'll have a view on this, on the influence of AI over the next few years. I know I'll be watching its share price just to see if it does stabilize, and that's all I'll do. I'll be watching it. I won't be buying it, Charlie.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see. I mean, we always replace labor with technology over time, but the technology is changing so rapidly that it's more challenging than ever to understand what is the right investment in technology and when do you make that investment. But whether it's AI or other types of automation, it's going to be a fascinating few years in the food system without question. So, David, thank you so much for all of your contributions. Hard to believe that 2025 is already in our rearview mirror. Thank you to you, and give our very best to Susan. We wish you a happy Christmas, and we will be back with David on January the 8th for the fastest 15 minutes in food. So happy holidays, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. David, thanks again so much. Take care.
And happy Christmas, even though we've got 3.5 weeks to go. Bye, Charlie.
Take care. Bye-bye.